Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Imelda Maguire's launch of her book, 48 Fragments. It's her second collection from Revival Press. And to kick off things, we'll have a word from our director, Dominic Taylor.
Thanks a million, Tom. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. Okay. Thanks to all of you for coming out this afternoon to celebrate the publication of Imelda's book, 48 Fragments. The Limerick Writers Centre, through its Poetry and Revival Press, is delighted to publish this new collection, as Tom said, Imelda's second from Revival Press. And once again, we're delighted to add this book to the store of contemporary Limerick poetry. It is also the 17th event out of a total of 22 happening during April is Poetry Month in Limerick Festival. And believe me, I'm tired. Pablo Neruda, the Nobel Prize-winning poet, said a number of years ago that poetry is like bread. It should be shared by all, by the vast, incredible, extraordinary family of humanity. And that is what we are doing here today, sharing with family and friends the poetry of Imelda Maguire. That quotation from Neruda we have taken very much to heart at the Limerick Writers Centre, and firmly believe that poetry, like all genuine cultural activity, must come from the clay and soil of our communities. The book we are launching here this afternoon is the 126th title the Limerick Writers Centre has published since 2008 under its community publishing programme. We believe that there is an intrinsic value and profound importance on the artistic and communal value of community publishing, as it serves to memorialise our cultural history, foster a literary community, and inspires a passion for reading and literature. And also, what better way than a book to promote the universal values of literacy, peace, love, and genuine humanness. So we encourage writers, from the serious career-minded, the people who write for pleasure, healing, personal growth, insight, or just to inform. And over the years, we have produced a broad range of writing, including poetry, history, memoir, and general prose. So I'm delighted to see you here today to support Imelda's book launch. It is great that Imelda's new work is now available, and as a poet who lived and grew up in Limerick, she will bring a positive awareness of Limerick to a local and hopefully a national audience. Also, it's through the sale of books like Imelda's that we can continue to reinvest and publish new writers. So when you buy Imelda's book, you're not only supporting her, but other local writers also. To conclude, I'd just like to thank a number of people who helped make this occasion a success. Thanks to Una and Siobhan here at the gallery, to Jerry O'Mahony for allowing us to use his painting as a cover image, and to Eoin Devereux, who will officially launch the book, although virtually, and to my own colleagues at the Limerick Writers Centre, and especially to Lot Bender for her work in designing all our books. Thank you very much.
Imelda, the Maguire family, and your wide circle of friends in Limerick and Donegal and beyond, it is an honour and a privilege for me to launch 48 Fragments. I must begin, however, with an apology. Having studiously avoided COVID-19 for the last 2 years, I finally tested positive last week and I'm currently isolating. I'm really sorry to miss this beautiful event in person. I've long been an admirer of Imelda Maguire's poetry. Her earlier collections have a special place on my bookshelves, and I find myself returning to Shout If You Want Me to Sing and Serendipity with great regularity. Imelda Maguire is one of my favourite poets, and while I am a lifelong close friend of her brother Mike, and I was fortunate enough to meet with Imelda's parents and other siblings many times when I visited the Maguire household in Duradoy over the years, I only first got to know Imelda Maguire through her written work. I regard her work very highly. Maguire is one of the most important poets at work today on the island of Ireland. Her poetry is accessible, meditative, therapeutic, alert to the common experiences of human frailty. She writes eloquently about themes which are all at once local, personal and universal. There is a humanity in Imelda Maguire's poetry whose themes range from family to nature to spirituality and transcendence. Across all three collections, I'm particularly taken with her poems about her late parents. In Sundays, for example, she recalls, "My father's Sundays, I see him in his black leather chair after the football or hurling is done with his music on, hands waving in the air as he conducts." And as in her earlier collections, Imelda's wise late mother features across all three collections of her writing. Here is Mrs. Maguire recalled in Quirks. "Quirks, my mother had some habits, whistling, greeting magpies, eating jam off a spoon. But I'm remembering the way as we drove up the country, she'd read aloud the signs we passed. Tubber Curry, 10 miles. Joanne's hair salon. Cabbage plants for sale. Our journeys punctuated by her litany. Big signs were often ignored in favour of the one that just struck her for no known reason. We could travel a long way without a word, and then suddenly, tripe on Tuesday." The late Mrs. Maguire clearly had a way with words, and this is something that her daughter, poet, carries with her. Mrs. Maguire was also a keen gardener, and her love of nature is something that permeates Imelda Maguire's writing. Imelda Maguire is a harvester of words, a taker of slips, whose poems propagate insights and revelations. Imelda Maguire never strays into the trap of nostalgia, however. She conjures up the past in a Proustian fashion. I'm thinking particularly here of her poetry about Mulgrave Street and William Street in Limerick. Beautiful memories which are captured through recounting the sights, the smells and the sounds associated with memories. So I wholeheartedly commend this beautiful collection of poetry to you. Before I close, I want to once again underscore the really important work undertaken by Revival Press under the leadership of Dominic Taylor. The Centre has single-handedly promoted writing and publishing in Limerick, often with little or no support from local or national arts funding. I for one value what they do, and it's because of publishing houses like Revival that we can enjoy Imelda Maguire's poetry in book form. I strongly commend Imelda Maguire's 48 Fragments to you. It is a beautiful collection of poetry. Thank you.
It's very kind of him. Like, he could have just said, "No, sorry, I won't be able to be there." So he went out of his way to make the recording. It was really, really good of him. And he's left me sort of feeling, how am I going to live up to what he's just said about this? So that's my trouble. He's a very kind man. And I'll take him at his word that there's something in this, so I'll share some of these poems with you. I want to say at first as well something about the cover. I'm just so pleased and thankful to Jerry O'Mahony for giving me the run of his studio to choose an image, and I couldn't have found a nicer one. Well, I could, because he had so many I could have chosen from, but this one just seems perfect, and I thank him from the bottom of my heart for this. It's really a delight to have it. And about the title, people ask me what why, and of course as it turns out, there are 48 poems in it, and there are 48 fragments of thought or ideas. And I had a notion that by the time you're preparing your third collection, and it sounds very grand to me, that you ought to have a theme and it ought to have something consistent about it, that often poets do. And then I was watching Billy Collins, one of my favourite poets. He's been doing these nightly things all during the lockdown and everything. And he said, some poets do write books. I don't write books, I write poems, and when I have enough of them, I put them together and they become a book. And I thought, well, if that's a good enough approach for Billy Collins, it's all right for me too. So I saw, have I got enough to pull together? And I had. So I said then, I'll see if there's a book in it, and it seems that there was. So thank you. I'm going to go a little bit at random through these here, and the first poem I'd like to share with you is about my mother. What Mother said. She said she would give me a leather medal for passing exams. And she said I could never be anybody but myself. Who else would you be, she asked, as though I really doubted who I was, who I am. She said you don't have to measure, you just need to know how you want it to turn out, and that it's fine if everything's different every time. Would you really want it to always be the same? Some things she didn't say, she just implied, or I took it as read, that it is good to take pleasure in what's good, that a little pleasure can be great if you go fully into it, like she would with ice cream. I wonder what it was she said the day the ladybirds came, the day we found her with the loveliness of them, draped around her as she sat on the bench, looking out over the rocks. How did she call them to her, or what did she do that said, stay? We were there again this summer, my sister and I. We showed my son the place, the very bench she'd sat on. There should be a statue or a plaque engraved with the picture. Old lady with a lap full of ladybirds, all over her blue summer dress. And what she said, lovely, she said, lovely. Staying a little bit on the theme of family, a couple of years ago, very fortunately before COVID came along, my sisters and a few of my cousins managed to make a trip to Toronto to visit some other cousins. And this is the poem about us. Goose tribe. We gather the tribe, fly west, arrive honking and clacking, trailing luggage and memories. We are not native to this place, but make it ours for now. The nest we share filled with feathers and shell fragments. We fly on, one leading with strong wings, pairs fitting in behind to form our skein, beating our way onwards, until one relieves the leader, steps up to take her place. We stay together, propelled by blood and sharing, held aloft by mother lines, grandmother lines. We fly. And when one of the funny things about that was I thought the geese were fabulous in Canada, and they're lovely and so exotic and lovely. And the cousin who lives there said they're just shite machines. So, but I still like so anybody who has lived there might know what I liked. This was a little bit, it's still in a family theme, I suppose, but it's broader, it's ancestry. This poem's grandmother was a story of hunger told in a whispering voice, shared at night by women with sisters and daughters. She came to an end before her time, trailed away to silence. This poem came from a place where nothing now exists but piles of stones. In spring, flowers bloom that might have once been gardened, now only the wild remnants of that time. Their fragrance, though, still the same sweet scent. There was a great uncle of this poem. He had no children, no wife. He was not the son to get the land, nor the one to find his way to priesthood, nor a trade. He became a wanderer, singing snatches of old songs. He'd write poems on cigarette boxes, murmur them at night, wherever he laid his head. One of this poem's grandfathers grew things, wheat for the mill, cabbage, potatoes, turnips for the table, and trees he planted. Trees because he loved the song of them, their sighs, the poems they whispered to him, and still they stand, some of those trees. And some of the daughters and sons of those trees still sing and tell their poems to the breeze, and sing over the saplings just now beginning to stretch into the light, to sing their own songs, to chant their own verse. So, the theme of trees. I love this park. I've loved this park since I was a child, and when I duck out of school we used to come up and sit here, and then later on when I was at school in Laurel Hill, it was the quickest way to get across over that way, so we cut through the park all the time, and I knew it in all its seasons. I absolutely love this season. So trees are coming up again here. This is Tree Song. It was the voice of the wind in the trees, the beeches, pines, that big old sycamore beyond the wall that lulled me to sleep, murmuring an autumn lullaby, all shh, shh, shh. They said it was time for slowing, for settling in, told me I had gathered enough. It was time now to rest, allow silence to come for now, to wait a little while in this nesting place, to settle and trust that after autumn, after winter, after rest, spring will come again, to know that what's been gathered, what's been stored will last. Every seed will come to its birthing time. Every root will one day cast a new shoot. I have to thank you all for being here. I mean, your Sunday afternoon, you could be doing all sorts of things, and you're here, and I really do appreciate that. The last time I launched a book here, wasn't here, it was up in the Granary Library that Mike used to work in, and it was a Thursday night, and it was in December, and I looked down, and there was 3 people who had travelled from Cork, and they're here again. Anton and Caroline had come up, and this man, yes, and this other guy, I said, he has school tomorrow, what is that guy doing there? This was in 2015. So, yes, reader, I married him. So Finbar is here with me, and I've dedicated this book to him, to Finbar, my husband, my love, the great gift in my life, which he is. I'm not sure which of the two of us is the more embarrassed, but yeah, I'm standing up and he's sitting down. So this is a poem for Finbar. I plan to walk Mulgrave Street with you. We haven't walked enough together yet. There has to come an afternoon in autumn when I will show you how I walked, back when we were kids, the journey to school. The points of note along the way, I've told you of them all, but here, if you come with me in fall, we will kick our way through leaves thick on the ground, below the hospital wall, if the trees are still there. Are the trees still there? Horse chestnuts that were old and noble even when I was a child. And if they're gone, all we can do is imagine them, those leaves, stretch ourselves to hear the crunch and crackle, maybe skip a step or two. You will hold my hand because we're walking together, walking back into our lives from here, from now. Maybe I'll do another 2, and that will be enough for now. So, I know that there's loads of people to be thanked, including all of my family who are here. Dominic for his fantastic way of just saying yes all the time, and the energy he puts into his work, not just, as has been said, not just with my book, but 126 books in the last few years is just phenomenal, and every one of them, such care and attention put into the production, and such care given to the writers. It's a wonderful service, and it should be better acknowledged by the powers that be, and even without that, you're still doing great work, and I appreciate it. I'll give you the poem that it starts with. It starts with a poem called What Hope Is. Hope is what's bursting out of the rowan now, little fluffy leaves promised, and hope pushes its green way out on the hornbeam. Tiny greennesses along each twig, shining and promising. More green, more green. Hope is creeping under the ground, runners and suckers all headed for the light in a jumble of hope, a model of promise, of future, of something to come. It's life, hope is. It's life. And I'll finish with one called Everybody Has a River. Yeah, everybody has a river. Some river they have sat by or walked by, crossed or tried to cross. Everybody comes from somewhere by a river, by its source or its mouth, its opening to the sea. Everybody has a river that's taken something from them, borne it away, or brought something to them to be found on a bank or in shallows. Everybody needs a river to run through their life, to watch as it flows. Sooner or later, everybody cries a river, everybody cries their own river. My river is wide, dark and deep. Yours is swift, dancing over silver stones. When they meet, light glints in my depths. The new river sings a new song.
Thank you very much, Imelda Maguire.
Thank you.
The youngish poet, Edward Dwyer, will gladly accept your money for copies of the book. Edward insisted he's no longer a young poet. Well, that says maybe. None of us are getting any younger. Anyway, enough of the city home for one day. Listen, our next event, and hopefully Eoin Devereux will be up and fighting fit for it, is the Poetry Circle's presentation of Eoin Devereux, Emily Cullen and Michael Durack, and it's in Sexton's Bar, Henry Street, Limerick at 7 p.m. on Wednesday. Now, plug for a very good event which is currently on in the gallery. It's Spirit Music. Tom Fitzgerald, sculptor, painter, and regular good fellow. It's a celebration of his life's work, and I heartily recommend it. So that's about the size of it, folks. Enjoy, buy the book. Keep Imelda happy.